everybody. Right, we're going to do another little experiment this morning, and today we're going to try and measure acceleration due to gravity, or the Earth's gravitational field strength if you rather, just by using a mass hanging on a spring. And what we're going to do with this mass is we're going to bob it up and down, and it is going to oscillate in a motion that we call simple harmonic motion. Now it's a two-step experiment here, because the first thing we're going to do is we're going to load different masses onto that spring and measure how much it extends. And then using that same mass, we're going to make it oscillate and measure the time taken for 20 oscillations. And from that time, we're going to work out its period of oscillation. And from the initial extension of the spring and the period of its simple harmonic motion, we should be able to work out small g, that's acceleration due to gravity. Let's see how we get on. So here's my table of results. So we're going to add different masses to the spring. We're going to work out the weight of each of those masses and measure how long the spring extends by. Now, there's my spring there. I've got it set up beside a meter stick, and the bottom of the spring is level with 500 millimeters on that meter stick. Plus or minus a couple of millimeters maybe. So what we want to do is, we want to hang 50 grams on there and measure how much the spring extends. So I've hung 50 grams on it, and my spring has extended from the bottom of the spring, has extended from the 500 position down to about 513. So my extension was 13 millimeters. And then I'm going to add on another 50 grams and measure what the extension is. Well, this time it's now down at about 32. And so on and so on. I'm going to keep adding masses, and each time I add a mass, I'm going to measure the extension. And we'll speed this wee bit up so that we're not here all day. Okay, now once I've got those extensions, I am now going to use the same masses, but I'm going to measure how long it takes for 20 oscillations when I take the mass, pull it down by a small amount, and then release it. And I'm going to time 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You get the idea. Anyway, let's get a stop clock. So I'm back with my 50 grams. I've got my stop clock, and I'm going to time how long it takes for 20 oscillations if I pull it down a wee bit and let it go. That's pretty difficult to measure, but I'm going to try. Here we go. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And there we go. That's about 5.5 seconds. I'm going to repeat that a few times. I'm going to repeat it 5 times, and I'm going to put down the mean time for 20 oscillations in there. Pretty difficult to measure. It'll be much easier when we've got a bigger mass on it. Right, I've repeated it 5 times, worked out the mean. That was 5.87 for 20 oscillations. Now I'm going to repeat it again, but this time I've got 100 grams on there. So I've got 100 grams. It made the spring originally extend by 32 millimeters. I'm going to time how long it takes for 20 oscillations. If I pull it down a wee bit, let it go. It's now oscillating with simple harmonic motion, and we're going to time 20 oscillations. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. 1, 2, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay. And I've got about 8.2 seconds there. Again, I'll repeat it a number of times and work out the mean. And it was 8.2 seconds. Repeating it again, and so on and so on. We'll speed this up a bit. Okay, I'm at my last one now. I've got 250 grams on there. Pull it down a wee bit, just a wee bit. Let it go. It's now oscillating with simple harmonic motion. We're going to time it. Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. And we get about 12.4 seconds. Again, I'm going to repeat that 5 times and put the mean time in my table. There's my table then for all of those results. Let's go and fill in the last 2 columns.
Alright, I filled in the last 2 columns there. Firstly, we've got the period of oscillation for each mass. That was the time for one oscillation. And then I have squared all of them. So I've got t squared in my last column there. And the reason that I'm doing that is because we're going to plot a graph of extension against the period squared. And the reason for that is because I found an equation online. I just googled mass on a spring and found this web page from school physics, and it gives us an equation where we can work out acceleration due to gravity from the extension of a spring when you put a mass on it and it's at rest, and then the time it takes for one oscillation of that mass when it's oscillating with simple harmonic motion. Now, I also found a version of the same experiment in this lovely book here. It's called A Laboratory Manual of Physics by F. Tyler, and there is another version of that same relationship that we're going to use. But let's have a look at this in a wee bit more detail. So there's the relationship we're going to be using, and if you're interested, we'll derive this at the end of the video. And E is the rest extension of the spring when you put a mass on it, that's measured in meters. Small g is acceleration due to gravity in meters per second squared, and t is the period of oscillation of the mass on the spring, measured in seconds. Now if we square both sides there, you'll get t squared equals 4 pi squared e over g. That's us just getting rid of the square root sign. And then if we rearrange it, because it's g that we're looking for, then g equals 4 pi squared e over t squared. Now, if we plot a graph of all our extension values against all our t squared values, then hopefully that should give us a linear relationship, or even a straight line that goes through the origin. And then we can find small g by doing 4 pi squared times the gradient. Now I'm going to do my graph on Excel because that will allow us to find the gradient very quickly, and also the uncertainty in the gradient. So there's my table of results, and remember we want to draw a graph of extension against t squared. So I'm going to put my data into an Excel spreadsheet with the t squared values in the first column and the extension values in the second column, because Excel will draw a graph with t squared on the x-axis and e on the y-axis. So if I highlight them and then go to insert a scatter chart, then Excel will plot the points for us. Now it's a bit small, so let's make it a wee bit bigger, and then there's a lot we have to do with this. So firstly, let's change the markers, because Excel defaults to big blobs. So if we right click on a marker and then select the marker options, we can go for one of the built-in ones and we can change it to a cross, and also we can make those crosses a wee bit bigger. Let's make them size 8. And it defaults to blue. We're going to change them to black. So there's our points. And if I right click on a point again, we get the option to add a trend line. And again, it defaults to a blue dashed line. We want to change that. So click on the wee paint pot, and we're going to change it to black. And we're also going to change it from being a dashed line to being a solid line. And it'll be a wee bit heavy, so we can bring the width down to about 0.75. There we go. Now let's give it a title before we go any further. Let's just call this Mass on a Spring. And we better add our axes and labels and grid lines. Now, that little plus box in the top right hand corner there, it opens up all these options for you, so you can add major and minor grid lines, which you want. And you can also add your axis titles. Now your axis titles are a bit of a faff, especially when you want to type in superscripts. But we want t squared on the bottom there, the units are seconds squared. We'll fix the superscripts in a minute. And on the y-axis we've got extension measured in meters. I also want them a wee bit bigger, I think. So size 14 maybe. And then the superscripts, you highlight the thing you want to superscript and you'll get that from the font menu. That's again superscript. Okay, that all looks good. The last thing I want, if I right click on the trend line again, I can scroll down and display the equation of the line on the chart by ticking that wee box there. There it is, it's a wee bit small, but let's move it along, make it a wee bit bigger, and there is my gradient. That's in the form of y equals mx plus c, so my gradient is 0.2485. And my y-intercept there has got a small negative y-intercept of 0.0093, but we'll talk more about that later. Let's get back to determining a value for acceleration due to gravity. Well, there's where we left off with our equation g equals 4 pi squared times the gradient. We've now got the gradient, that's 0.2485. So if we just sub that into the equation, we'll get g equals 4 pi squared times 0.2485. And if you do that on your calculator, you'll get an answer of 9.8 meters per second squared. And you might think, wonderful, I've got a perfect answer. But as you know in physics, any measurement you make without knowledge of its uncertainty is meaningless. So let's go back to Excel and see if we can work out the uncertainty in the gradient of the graph. Now Excel has got a function built into it called the LINEST function, which basically looks at your spread of your points and then works out the uncertainty in your gradient. And so to use that, here's what you do. Firstly, you highlight a little grid of 4 cells anywhere in your spreadsheet, and then in the function bar you type equals and then the word LINEST. In fact, it appears as soon as you start typing, so you can double click on that. And then you're asked for your known y values, so highlight all your extension values and then hit a comma. And then you're asked for all your x values, so same thing again, highlight them all and then click a comma. And then you're asked to type true, so double click true and then a comma and true again. Double click and then close your bracket. And then Excel will work away in the background and do whatever it does to work out the uncertainty in your gradient. And to display that, you have to press Control, Shift and Enter simultaneously. And then those 4 cells will be populated with some data. Let's make it a wee bit bigger so you can see. And if you look at those 4 cells carefully, in the top left one, we've got the gradient. In the top right, we've got the y-intercept. And below those two is the uncertainty in those 2 values. So the uncertainty in the gradient is 0.005. And if you work that out as a percentage of your gradient, it's 2%. Let's have a look at that wee box in a bit more detail then. Top left is the gradient, bottom left is the uncertainty in the gradient, top right is the y-intercept, and the bottom right one is the uncertainty in the y-intercept. Now, it's the 2 on the left that we're interested in then. So the uncertainty of the gradient was 0.005. If we divide that by the gradient at 0.2485, then we'll get that as a percentage, which is 2%. And that will be the only uncertainty in our calculated value for G. So G is equal to 9.8 plus or minus 2%, and if you work out what 2% is of 9.8, it's 0.2 meters per second squared. So our conclusion is that we've got a value for G that is both accurate and precise. But what about the y-intercept? Well, it was negative 0.0093 meters because the y-axis was the extension. So that points to a systematic uncertainty of about 9 millimeters in all of our readings. They're all too low. And that's possibly down to the fact that we shouldn't have started with an unloaded spring. We should have put an initial mass on at first to overcome any spring tension. That's it then. Pretty good experiment. If you're interested in the derivation of that relationship though, the one we started with, then hang on for a wee minute and we'll show you that just to finish things off. If not, we'll see you in the next one. Okay, here's the derivation of the relationship we used to work out G using a mass on a spring. Now this involves Hooke's law and the general equation for simple harmonic motion. So firstly then, Hooke's law. If you add masses to a spring and record values of weight and extension and draw a graph of each of them, it gives you the result that F equals minus Ky, where F is the restoring force that balances the weight of the mass, K is the spring constant, and Y is the extension of the spring that's produced from its equilibrium position. And there's the results that we got from our experiment there. And using these results gives you a spring constant of 24 newtons per metre. And what that means is that if the spring was infinitely long, then you would need a force of 24 newtons to extend it by 1 metre. And we need to use Hooke's law in the next part of our derivation. So part 2, using simple harmonic motion to determine G. If we use the same masses as in step 1 and we pull the masses down by a small amount and release them, then we can measure the time it takes for 20 oscillations. And from that time we can determine the period of oscillation of each mass. So our relationship to determine G can be derived as follows from Hooke's law. So there's Hooke's law there, F equals minus Ky, where the restoring force is directly proportional to the displacement. And if we sub in for Newton's second law, F equals ma, then ma equals minus Ky, and rearranging it for a equals minus k over m times y. Now if we compare that with the general equation for simple harmonic motion, then acceleration equals minus omega squared y, where omega is the angular frequency of the simple harmonic motion. And if we compare those two relationships, then omega squared is the same as k over m. And from our work in rotational motion, omega, the angular velocity, is equal to 2 pi over t. So if we substitute in for omega and square root both sides, we get 2 pi over t equals the square root of k over m. And then flipping the whole lot upside down and multiplying both sides by 2 pi, we get t equals 2 pi root m over k. Now, there's no g in that relationship, so how do we get g from this then? Well, the force in the Hooke's law relationship is equal to the weight of the hanging mass, so F equals mg, and the displacement y is equal to the extension of the spring, so y equals E. So F equals minus Ky becomes mg equals minus ke, and then rearranging that, we get m over k equals minus E over g, and we can substitute that into the relationship for the period of oscillation of a mass on a spring, and we get t equals 2 pi root E over g, and that was the relationship we started with. And then by squaring that on both sides, we get t squared equals 4 pi squared E over g, and rearranging, we get g equals 4 pi squared E over t squared. We then drew a graph of our extension against the period squared, and we took the gradient of that graph, multiplied it by 4 pi squared, and got our value for acceleration due to gravity. And of course, we used LINEST to determine the percentage uncertainty in that gradient, which was our percentage uncertainty in our calculated value for G. That's it then. That was a bit of a marathon, but that's just one of the ways that you can determine acceleration due to gravity, and hopefully get a pretty reasonable result. See you in the next one.